I run a travel agency in Copenhagen, specializing in American tours. Last Tuesday, a man from Boston wandered in holding an empty ibuprofen bottle like it was contraband. He'd been searching for 20 minutes to buy more off a shelf somewhere and couldn't understand why every shop kept redirecting him to us. "Where's the medicine aisle?" he asked, genuinely confused. I told him medicines are only sold at pharmacies here, not gas stations or supermarkets. He stared at me, then said, "But that's communism. In America, we have freedom to buy Advil at 2 a.m. from a 7-Eleven because that's what the Founding Fathers intended." He pulled up a Wikipedia article about the Second Amendment, which he claimed also covered pharmaceutical access. My colleague tried explaining that Danish regulations just require pharmacist consultations for safety. But he interrupted with, "Yeah, well, George Washington never needed a pharmacist to tell him about aspirin. He just grabbed it and paid." We directed him to the pharmacy 2 blocks away. He returned an hour later, furious that the pharmacist had asked about his symptoms. "That's a HIPAA violation," he announced to our entire office. My cousin manages a ski resort medical station in Innsbruck. An American woman, maybe 40, skied in last December needing eye drops for conjunctivitis. My cousin grabbed the prescription pad, but she held up her hand. "I don't need that. Just point me to your pharmacy section," he explained. She needed to see a doctor first, then take the prescription to a pharmacy. She squinted at him like he'd suggested bloodletting. In Texas, I walk into Walgreens and grab this myself. Why do Europeans make everything so complicated? My cousin said our system ensures proper diagnosis. She responded that freedom means not waiting for some government doctor when you already know what's wrong. I insisted pink eye was obvious and demanded we respect medical autonomy. He wrote the prescription anyway. 2 days later, she left a 1-star review claiming Austria restricts basic human rights to self-medicate. I'm a medical translator in Barcelona. An American gentleman, 70-ish, came to a clinic last month with his daughter. He needed his blood pressure medication refilled, but hadn't brought his prescription from Florida. The doctor said she'd need to examine him and write a Spanish prescription. He seemed baffled. "Just look up my American prescription in your computer," he suggested. His daughter tried explaining systems don't connect internationally. He insisted that's impossible in 2024 and claimed all doctors share one database because of cloud technology. He pulled out his phone, showing a photo of his pill bottle. "There, that's proof, I take it." "Just give me the same thing," doctor explained. She still needed to verify his blood pressure and current dosage. He called this bureaucratic nonsense and said his American doctor had already done all this last year. He asked if Spain had heard of medical records. The daughter apologized profusely while he grumbled about European inefficiency. A pharmacist in Dublin. Last summer, an American tourist rushed in, asking for the strongest ibuprofen you have. Like 800 milligrams. I handed her the 400 milligrams tablets, explaining that's the highest dose available without prescription here. She blinked slowly. "In America, I get 800 milligrams over the counter at Costco. You guys must have it somewhere," said 800 milligrams requires a prescription in Ireland. She laughed, then realized I wasn't joking. "That's insane. It's the same drug, just more of it. What if I just buy 2 boxes and take double?" I advised against that without medical supervision. She responded that she's been managing her own pain for 30 years and didn't need Ireland treating her like a child. She purchased the 400 milligrams tablets while muttering about European regulations babying everyone. Before leaving, she asked if this was because of Brexit. My sister works at a pharmacy in Lyon. An American man in his 30s entered last April holding a crumpled prescription from his Los Angeles doctor. Dated 6 months prior, he placed it on the counter expecting her to fill it immediately. She explained French pharmacies don't honor foreign prescriptions without local doctor validation. He looked stunned. "But it's a legitimate prescription written by a real doctor." "What's the problem?" She said regulations require French medical oversight. He insisted this was discrimination against American healthcare and claimed his doctor's credentials were probably better than French doctors anyway, he suggested. that France was protectionist about medicine. My sister offered to direct him to a local clinic. He declined, saying he'd already wasted enough time explaining basic medicine. He asked if she could just make an exception for Americans, since we invented most of these drugs. Anyway, she couldn't. He left claiming France was medically backwards. Manage a tourist information desk in Prague. An American couple, both around 50, approached last September asking where they could buy a month's supply of antibiotics, just in case. I said antibiotics require prescriptions here. You can't stockpile them preventively. The husband seemed incredulous. In America, smart people keep antibiotics at home for emergencies. It's called being prepared. I explained that's illegal here and contributes to antibiotic resistance. He countered that Europeans probably get sicker because they don't have medicine ready, his wife added. That waiting for prescriptions wastes precious vacation time. Husband insisted their approach was medically sound because you never know when you'll need amoxicillin. I suggested they visit a doctor if they actually got sick. He responded that was reactive instead of proactive health care. They seemed convinced Czech medicine was behind the times. He asked if this was a communist holdover thing. My brother manages a small pharmacy in Lisbon. An American student studying abroad came in last October, asking for Plan B emergency contraception. He handed it to her immediately. It's available over the counter in Portugal. She stared at the box, then at him. How much does it cost? He said 12 euros. She gasped. 12 euros? That's like $15. In America, this is $45 minimum, usually more. My brother confirmed the price. She asked if it was expired or fake because the price seemed suspiciously low. He assured her it was legitimate, just how much it costs here. She bought 3 boxes for emergencies and couldn't stop talking about the price difference. She kept asking how Portugal could afford to sell it so cheaply. My brother explained government price regulation. She called that unthinkable in America and said she'd never complain about European socialism again. She left utterly bewildered by paying reasonable prices for medication. This is what health care should cost, she muttered, photographing the receipt. I work at a pharmacy in Stockholm. An American woman, maybe 35, came in last November requesting the little purple pill for acid reflux. I asked which medication specifically. She said, Nexium? The purple one. I pulled it from behind the counter and mentioned she'd need to speak with me briefly about usage. She seemed annoyed. I've taken it for 5 years. I know how it works. Just ring it up. I explained Swedish regulations require brief pharmacist consultation for all medications. She responded that she didn't have time for this and already knew everything about it. I persisted with standard questions anyway. She answered impatiently, then complained this would never happen in America. She said Walgreens trusts customers to know their own bodies. I processed her purchase. Before leaving, she said Sweden was overregulated, and no wonder you guys pay so much in taxes. The whole interaction took 90 seconds. I'm a tour guide in Amsterdam. An American family visited last August, and the teenage daughter had a migraine. Her father asked where the nearest pharmacy was. I directed him to streets over. He returned 15 minutes later, confused. The pharmacist asked me all these questions about her symptoms. I just wanted to buy Excedrin. Explained that standard procedure here pharmacists assess before dispensing. He seemed bothered. In America, medicine's on the shelf. You grab it, you pay, you leave. This feels like an interrogation. His wife suggested maybe they ensure safety. He scoffed, saying, Americans manage just fine without pharmacist approval for basic headache pills. He claimed the questioning was invasive and violated privacy. I mentioned most Europeans appreciate the guidance. He responded that it wastes time when you already know what you need. His daughter got her medication, but he spent the rest of the tour complaining about unnecessary pharmaceutical gatekeeping. He seemed genuinely offended by the interaction. My uncle owns a pharmacy in Munich. An American woman, late 20s, came in last December asking for Sudafed, the real kind with pseudoephedrine. He told her that medication's heavily restricted here because it's used to manufacture methamphetamine. She rolled her eyes. I'm not making meth. I have a cold. In America, I just show my ID and buy it. Explained German regulations are stricter than American ones. She insisted this was paranoid and punishes regular people for criminals' actions. She claimed American system balances freedom with safety better. My uncle offered alternatives like phenylephrine-based decongestants. She refused, saying those don't work as well and that she'd researched this online. She spent 10 minutes arguing about chemical efficacy. Eventually, she bought the alternative while loudly proclaiming it was inferior. She left, claiming Germany was afraid of its own citizens. My uncle sees this monthly with American tourists demanding pseudoephedrine access. I work at a pharmacy in Reykjavik. An American man, 40-something, rushed in last March needing something for his child's fever. I asked the child's age and weight. He seemed irritated. Why does that matter? Just give me children's Tylenol. Explained I needed details for proper dosing. He said, I know the dose. I've given it 100 times. I've told him Icelandic regulations require pharmacist verification. He called this helicopter parenting on a national level and insisted Americans trust parents to dose their own kids, he suggested. This policy undermined parental authority. Maintained I needed the information. He finally provided it, shaking his head. I gave him the correct medication with instructions. He responded that he'd been a parent for 8 years and didn't need instructions for children's fever medicine. Before leaving, he said Iceland treats parents like incompetent idiots. The entire exchange lasted 3 minutes, but he acted like I'd demanded a blood sample. His wife apologized as they left. My cousin works at a pharmacy in Brussels. An American tourist, 60-ish, came in last June asking for prescription eye drops he'd forgotten at home. My cousin explained he'd need a local doctor's prescription first. The man seemed astonished. My American doctor already prescribed these? Just call him. My cousin said they don't have authority to contact foreign doctors for verification. He insisted that doesn't make sense in a globalized world. He claimed doctors should be able to fax prescriptions internationally, and that Brussels was stuck in the past for not having this system. My cousin offered to help him find a local doctor. He refused, saying he shouldn't have to pay another doctor when he'd already seen one. He suggested Belgian pharmacy regulations were designed to extract money from tourists. Oh, my cousin apologized but couldn't help without proper documentation. The man left muttering about European bureaucracy and medical territorialism. He seemed convinced American doctors should have universal authority everywhere. My cousin handles similar situations weekly. I'm a pharmacist in Vienna. An American couple came in last May asking where the prescription pickup drive-through window was. I said, we don't have drive-thrus, customers come inside. The wife looked shocked. How do sick people get medicine if they can't stay in their car? I suggested they could park and walk in, which takes about 2 minutes. The husband said that defeats the whole purpose of convenience. Hey, claimed drive-through pharmacies were invented for a reason and represented peak efficiency. Wife worried about exposing other customers to germs when you're sick. I mentioned that's what masks are for. He responded that wearing a mask just to walk into a pharmacy seems excessive. They both seemed convinced. Drive-thrus were obviously superior, and if couldn't understand why European pharmacies rejected progress. The husband suggested it was probably a zoning issue. I said no. Austrians just prefer interacting with pharmacists face-to-face. They bought their prescription while insisting drive-thrus were coming to Europe eventually. They seemed pitying rather than angry, like we'd simply not discovered them yet. I'm a pharmacy assistant in Edinburgh. An American woman came in last October asking for the generic version of her prescription medication. I checked and said we only had the brand name in stock currently. She seemed alarmed. Generics are always available in America. Don't you guys believe in generic drugs here? I explained Scotland absolutely uses generics, but sometimes specific ones are temporarily out of stock. She insisted that didn't happen in America and claimed us pharmacies always have every generic. She seemed convinced we pushed expensive brands on customers. I told her the brand would be the same price anyway, because the NHS regulates costs. She appeared confused by that concept. So you're saying the brand name doesn't cost more? I confirmed. She hesitated, then said, "That can't be right. Brands are always more expensive. That's how capitalism works." I explained, "Our system doesn't function like that." She bought the brand name while mumbling about weird European pricing models. She kept checking the price like she expected a surprise markup at the register. My sister manages a pharmacy in Copenhagen. An American man, 50-ish, came in last February with a prescription requiring prior authorization from his insurance. He asked how long that would take. My sister looked confused and said his insurance wasn't relevant here. He'd just pay out of pocket and submit for reimbursement later if his plan covered international purchases. He seemed stunned. "You mean I have to pay full price up front?" She confirmed, saying it's typically quite affordable here anyway. He demanded to know the cost. She checked, €32. His jaw dropped. €32. For a month's supply? She nodded. He said this same prescription cost him almost $200 in America with insurance. My sister confirmed Denmark regulates pharmaceutical pricing. He stared at the ceiling like processing difficult mathematics. "So you're telling me it's cheaper here without insurance than in America with insurance?" She agreed. He bought the prescription while audibly calculating how much he'd spent over the years. Before leaving, he asked if moving to Denmark was complicated. My sister sees this reaction constantly from Americans checking prescription prices. I work at a medical clinic in Bergen. An American woman, 30s, came in last August, needing a prescription refill for anxiety medication. Our doctor examined her, wrote the prescription, and the total visit cost was about €60. She asked when the real bill would arrive. The doctor said that was the complete cost. She laughed nervously. "No, I mean the insurance bill. The explanation of benefits," the doctor explained again. €60, no additional billing. She seemed unable to process this. A doctor's visit, examination, and prescription for €60 total? The doctor confirmed. She sat silently for several seconds. In Texas, this would be $300 minimum, often way more, and I'd fight with my insurance for months. She seemed almost angry, not at us, but at her American system. She asked how Norway could afford this. The doctor mentioned tax-funded healthcare. She responded, "I'd happily pay higher taxes for this." She left, looking shell-shocked, clutching her prescription like it was a winning lottery ticket. Later, she returned to thank everyone again, still dazed. I manage a pharmacy in Athens. Last summer, an American tourist came in holding 7 prescription bottles, each with different dosages and instructions. He looked overwhelmed. "I'm paying $400 a month for these in America. What would this cost here?" I calculated quickly, roughly €80 total for everything, maybe less. He went pale. €80 for all 7? That's about $90, I confirmed. He sat down on the bench near the counter. "I've been rationing my medication for 2 years because I couldn't afford full doses. I asked if he wanted me to fill them here." He nodded silently. After processing everything, he just stood there, staring at the bag. "Europeans have no idea how good you have it," he finally said. I told him many Europeans know they hear these stories from Americans constantly. He left quietly, but returned the next day and asked if I could recommend an immigration lawyer. I think he was only half joking. Our pharmacy sees this monthly Americans discovering what medication should actually cost. And their reactions range from anger to grief to determination to leave the US. It's not just about pills. It's about realizing the system you trusted has been failing you all along.